Good morning, everybody. Welcome to camp. There is something really magical about being in a place like this, in a summer camp, surrounded by trees, an open sky, and unfortunately a lot of rain today. But you can smell, when I was coming in, you can smell the trees, and it smells like spring out there. This is not the setting that we usually find ourselves in as law students or as lawyers. But that's the whole point of this experience. We spend so much of our lives in spaces where we're expected to perform. And we're expected, especially as first generation lawyers, to be perfect, to look perfect, to sound perfect, to write perfect briefs, to write perfect contracts, to have perfect grades, to have perfect jobs. But we are not perfect people. We're human and we're messy and we're learning, and we deserve spaces like this one where we can be seen and supported and celebrated for who we are. So the Young Lawyers Division wanted to create a summit where we can have a community where that's possible, where authenticity is not just allowed but welcome. And so I invite you to bring that here today. This is not a place where you have to prove yourself. This is just a place where you belong. The Young Lawyers Division is that place for all young lawyers, and we really hope that that summit feels like that today too for you all. We chose a summer camp for this gathering very intentionally. When we were children, we asked for help. When we were children, we made mistakes. We played and we learned by doing. We didn't carry the shame that we have now when we're curious or when we're silly or when we're uncertain. We were free. And so today, in the middle of talking about financial wellness and mental health and finding our place and building our brand, I want to invite you to reconnect with that younger version of yourself, the one who still lives inside you. Because we don't have to hustle our way into worthiness. We belong here exactly as we are. This entire experience is made possible because of people who believe in that mission. So I certainly want to thank Tyquise and Emily, incredible co-chairs of the First Gen Committee, who planted the seeds of the summit and nurtured it into something real. Samantha, our fearless division director, thank you for your belief in this work and the steady leadership. Michelle and Sheila and Jeremy, for all the work that you put into and the dedication to making this day possible. And the commitment that you have to carry the summit forward into the future. Certainly to our staff, Brianne and Cheyenne, you didn't just work behind the scenes, you brought all this to life. But your heart and your hands, and we so thank you for all the work that you did to make this happen. And certainly to our partner, the Mecklenburg Bar Association and the other local bars who have spread the word about this and amplifying our reach. Before we dive into our programming today, I want to take a minute for a short meditation, a moment to ground ourselves and connect with the reason that we're here. This meditation is about reconnecting with our inner child, the version of us that didn't worry about being perfect, the version of us that played and imagined and believed that we were worthy just by asking and by existing. That version of you is here today, and I want you to invite them I want you to invite them, your inner child, to come to camp with you. So get comfortable in your seat. You can place your hands on your lap or by your sides, whatever feels grounded to you. If it feels safe for you, close your eyes, or at least soften your gaze, and let's begin by breathing together. Take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth. Again, inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Take one more deep breath. And back out. Now let your breath find its natural rhythm. Drop your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. Take your tongue off the roof of your mouth. You've arrived. Now, in your mind's eye, I want you to picture yourself as a child. What did you look like when you were about 5 years old? When you were 5 and you were curious, you were playful, and you're still learning about how the world worked. When you were closer to wonder than to worry. Let that version of you start to come into focus. Now imagine where you played as a child. Maybe it was your backyard. Maybe it was your front porch. Maybe it was an apartment courtyard, a field, a park, patch of woods, the playground in your school. Wherever that space is for you, go there in your mind. What does the sky look like above you? What's under your feet? The grass, pavement, gravel, dirt. Do you see any trees? Are there any toys around you? What about a swing set or a garden? Do you feel the sun on your skin? Gentle breeze. Or maybe it's just a quiet stillness for you. What sounds do you hear? Birds, maybe your siblings playing with you. Cars. Take a moment and walk through this space in your mind and let yourself feel how that place felt at 5 years old. See yourself playing as a 5-year-old child, exploring, just be. Notice how you do. Notice what you're doing. Are you climbing? Are you singing? Are you laughing? Running around? Look at your face. That's you. You've always been you. I want you to walk over to them and sit down beside them. Let them notice. You don't need to say anything right away. Just be with them. Let them know that you see. Now gently say something. Maybe it's I love you. Maybe it's you're safe now. Maybe it's you've done so well. Maybe it's just I'm here. Now listen. Hear what they have to say. What is it they want you to remember about being 5 years old? What if you forgot that they still know? Let's take a few moments to have that conversation. Let them give you one final message to carry with you today. Maybe it's a word. Maybe it's a feeling. Maybe it's the invitation you need to play. Hold that close. Gently tell them goodbye for now, but let them know they're welcome to come with you today. Take one last look around your space, your playground. Feel its warmth, its openness, its wonder. Come back to our breath. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Exhale back out through your mouth. Another deep breath in and out. Wiggle your fingers, your toes. Feel the ground beneath you. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and raise your gaze. Welcome back. That child inside you, that spark is with you today. I want them to come to our sessions. I want them to play during team building. And let them remind you that you belong exactly as you are right here. So let's have fun at camp. Michelle, you want to bring your panel up?
Sure.
Thank you.
Come on up, guys. Hey guys, my name is Michelle Livingstone. I am a litigator at the school in Charlotte. And we're here to talk about navigating the social workplace with my very esteemed panel over here. And I'm gonna let them each introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Williford. I'm a partner at Fox Rothschild in Greensboro. Practice mostly employment litigation, hodgepodge of other things, but I am former YLD chair and happy to be here with you all today.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Emily Carrico. I'm a personal injury lawyer in Greensboro, specializing in sex abuse cases. And I am the co-chair of the First Generation Committee. And I'm happy to be here this morning. Welcome.
And I'm Andrew Carter. I'm an associate at Maynard Nexen. I practice business litigation and construction law. And I'm very happy to be here speaking about first gen opportunities and dealing with the workplace. I'm looking forward to learning from everyone and maybe showing some of my
Yeah, so the purpose of this panel is talking about navigating the social workplace. So something that we have learned through talking with each other and other young attorneys is that a lot of time people have questions when they start their job, when they're in the middle of their job. And inherently as a first gen, you don't have a parent or someone close that you can go to with those questions. And so we're hoping that we can kind of answer some of those questions today. And I am a little bit of an anxious Amy, so I feel like I had 101 questions when I was starting off. So I'm just gonna channel my inner first year associate right now. And I'm really looking forward to getting some helpful tips from you guys. So first one I want to start off with, which I think it's starting to change a lot, the current scape of legal practice, is what are your work hours? How do you decide what your work hours are? When you come into the office, when you leave, if it's hybrid, when do you go into work, and just kind of how you challenge your basic work schedule. Lisa, you want to start?
Yeah, be happy to. So I think a lot of that depends on where you work, right? I'm from a larger law firm, so things are a little more structured where I am. And that doesn't necessarily mean less flexibility, it's just a different model. When I was first starting out as a first year associate, I really tried to model my work hours on the work hours of the people that I worked for. I also think that a great piece of advice that I got when I was starting out that I'll share with you all is it's always great to find someone, they don't have to be the exact age or stage as you, but someone that is either in your practice area or may be a younger associate at a firm situation, and rely on them for mentorship and questions. It doesn't have to be a formal mentorship program. One of the people that I relied on quite a bit for questions like this was someone who was put in charge of me as a summer associate. So she wasn't my formal mentor, but I certainly got to know her. And she would tell me things like, when I should show up to work, But my traditional work schedule starts around 8:30 and will go as long as I need. And I think one of the hard things about starting out as a lawyer too, is that there is really nobody to tell you when to go home. I mean, you are there to manage your schedule and to get your work done. And I think generally speaking, if you are able to get your work done within the hours that you set for yourself, then, that's your answer. At the same time, I will also note that as you're just starting out, I do think it's important not to always be the first one that's leaving, right? You're trying to set a good impression of yourself and your work ethic. So goes back to my initial comment of look at what other people around you are doing, look at the schedules that they're keeping, and don't be afraid to ask them. If you have something going on, let's just say a Friday, you need to be out of the office, like, go ahead and tell them that, tell them why, so that they're not looking around for you if an emergent project comes up, so.
I've had a couple of jobs since I left law school. I've been out for 8 years. So, I've practiced in, the nonprofit sector. I worked at Legal Aid for a long time. I practiced at very hybrid friendly law firms that are more traditional, 8:30 to 5:30 show up and work until you're done kind of type environment. So I've kind of hit the gamut of those things. And I think part of it is definitely what your employer's expectations are. I mean, you can't ignore that, right? Part of it is also knowing how you work. I noticed this phenomenon when we were studying for the bar, right? We'd spent 3 years learning how to study, right? And you get to the bar and it's like everyone forgot that they had spent 3 years studying and they start all over again. It was like first semester of law school, right? All of a sudden, everyone's like, I'm really into spreadsheets now. So maybe I promise we're not. People that have never been in study group are in study group, people that need support from other people are now studying by themselves. It's crazy. And I think the same thing happens when you enter practice. You kind of forget all these things about yourself. And for me, like I've known for years, since I was like 18 years old, I'm a morning person. I think better in the morning. I can't do all-nighters. I don't work great late at night. I don't think well. My brain gets tired. So realizing that for me was really freeing because it helped me better explain to employers how I am. And I'm farther and farther away from that first year associate now, right? So part of it, like when I just recently changed jobs, when I talked to the owner of our firm, I told her, I'm a morning person. I want to be in early. I'm not so much a later night person. Like I'll get my job done, I'll get my work done. You'll never have to worry about that, but that's just how I function. And so she knows that and she respects it. She's cool with it, thank goodness. And that works for me. It also was that sort of thing where if an employer had to be cool with it, I'm at the point where I wouldn't have gone to work there because I know that just is not a good model for me and how my brain works. So I know if you're like brand new, you're not in that place, but as you won't be brand new forever. Every day you get farther away from being brand new, right? So as you start navigating, you start thinking about second job or whatever, think about those sorts of things and get a good feel for it because it can really be beneficial, not only in doing your work, but knowing where you want to do your work and how you do your work.
And I'm coming from the perspective as being an associate or I'm practicing about three and a half to 4 years or so. And kind of in my area or in my practice, since I am younger, more junior in my practice, I definitely want to be, in the office. I try and be in the office almost at why I am in the office every day, matching the vibe or the culture of your office. So the office I'm in Greensboro, everyone's in the office every single day. So I'm in the office every single day. I communicate, obviously I'm here to speak with this panel, so I communicate with the partners I'm working with. Communication is key. Whether you're in the office or working from home. My previous firm, we did more work from home and we worked more with people in the Raleigh office, but again, communication is just really important, whether you're having phone calls or Zooms or doing things where you're staying connected. One thing I would say to folks that are, either in law school or more junior is just look at the kind of the culture of that office and ask questions. And you can learn a lot by just asking questions, like, oh, like, what time are you planning on being here in the morning, kind of early like that, or, oh, you can kind of talk about, hey, are you going to lunch today? Do people go home for lunch? Do people kind of bring in, lunch? Or, at my other firm, I work downtown and I would go and walk in the park during lunch. It would just be a mental escape, something where I could take some time and just kind of relax, and it made my afternoons more productive. I think balancing the day, if you are in the office, from 8:30 to 6, definitely having some time to break apart your day is really important, where, you're just getting outside, you're getting some fresh air. You're moving, I have an Apple Watch and my alerts go off, like, have you stood up? You've just gone, a whole hour, and you've been hunched over your chair. The funniest thing in my office is I have those automatic lights that turn on and off.
Oh,
And you'll start working and the lights will literally cut off, and you're like, have I not moved at all within the last, 30 minutes? I'm like, okay, you get up and do some stretches and things like that. But I think navigating, being in office or out of office is really on a case by case, but learning from the people in your office and communication, I think, is really important.
And Andrew, I'm gonna start with you on this one, because you kind of talked about it. How do you socialize within the office? Like, do you socialize? Should I be making time in my schedule to go talk to other attorneys? Who should I be talking to? Like, where do I eat my lunch? What do I do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, again, like as an associate, the more people in your office the more people you have relationships with, the better. So, having great relationships with your other associates, having relationships with your partners, people in your practice group, without people that are not in your practice group. I try and talk to every single person, staff people that are not necessarily attorneys, but are, your legal assistants, your paralegals, everyone in the office I try and talk to and have a relationship with, because I come from a sports background. I played tennis and was a tennis coach. And everyone in that office is a part of your team. You never know, you're all working towards the same goal as providing the best work product or outcome for your client. And, y'all are all on the same team moving towards the same goal. And, I think as an associate, it's very important to have great relationships with other associates, have that camaraderie, because some days it's gonna be tough, y'all are gonna know the quirks of the partners and things like that, and y'all can kind of commiserate with each other, so that's important. It's important to have relationships with the partners, because they're gonna be the ones that are giving you work and teaching you, and it's good to have a relationship where you're not afraid to ask them questions, you're learning from them, and you don't wanna be fearful of making a mistake, because if you're fearful of making a mistake, then you're not going to be able to grow, and you're going to be second guessing everything, and it's less efficient. So I think having relationships with the partners is very important. The legal and that's of counsel as well. The legal staff, those are the people that are going to be, doing all the type of administrative tasks, calling the clerk. I do litigation work, so calling the clerk, copying things, making drafts, doing all that. That is so fundamental to getting a good work product. So I think having a good relationship with that, and just having your door open is really important to, having your door open and having those just conversations about, what's going on the weekend, or your family and friends, things like that. I think helps build that relationship.
Yeah, that's really important if it hasn't already been impressed upon you, especially if you're in practice at a traditional law firm. Find the paralegals who have been there for a long time and be friends with them and be so kind and learn what they do. One thing, it's important to have that kind of friendly relationship. People work a lot with paralegals. Two, they are often, they may work with more than one attorney, and they become repositories of a lot of information for you, not just how to practice your job, how to do your job, the personal stuff about the people that you work with. And I don't mean like, I don't mean.
On the D.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the tea, though, that's sometimes a benefit, that's a fringe benefit. But, really, like, knowing how your partners work. So like, in my new job, I've only been there for like a month, and there's a paralegal there who's been there for a long time, and works well with my partner as well. So I've built a camaraderie with her, because I genuinely like her, it's not like Machiavellian or something. And so I call her up and I'm like, hey, how does so-and-so approach his day? Oh, he's a big morning person. Oh, fantastic. So I can call him at like 7:45, 8 in the morning, and that's not gonna be a big deal. Oh, no, that person, you wanna let them get their caffeine in. You don't wanna start calling them. Okay, that's a 10:30er. Got it. Understood. I get it. The other thing is like, don't be afraid to be, and this is probably my personality. I'm not so much a joiner as I am a gatherer. I'm like a mother hen. I want to gather everybody together. It's really important to me. So, when I start in a new place, I, decide I'm gonna go out to lunch one day, and I just invite every single person in the firm. Doesn't matter who you are, sections, whatever, come. And sometimes they can't, or whatever, and I do that relatively frequently, and sometimes that means going to lunch kind of by yourself. But I've found that it's a really good way, a lot of attorneys, we all do this, right? We're all kind of risk adverse. We're all cautious. Most of us, we all have piles and piles and piles of work. And it's really easy for us to work until the lights turn off, right? It's hard for people sometimes to make plans. And the busier they are, the harder it is to be the person that gathers people up. So if someone else has already done that work for you, it's a lot easier to say yes. So that has helped me build a lot of relationships with people in my law firm. And at all the law firms I've worked at, and it helps you kind of sit down sometimes, like, yes, like your partner that you're working with, your supervising attorneys, your paralegals, that's like so important. It's also really important to learn if you've got a firm that's big enough that people practice different things. It's so nice to make connections with people in different areas, because then it's like, I don't know the first thing about employment, but if I know someone who does, that could be helpful. I don't know the first thing about construction, but if I build rapport with someone who does know construction litigation, it's that much easier to get my information, work my job, that kind of thing. So yeah, super important. Don't be afraid to be the person that makes that like step out. It can lead to a lot of rewards, I think.
These are all very excellent points. I will add that, being a lawyer has its challenges, and it is so much easier to navigate those challenges when you have people in your office that you can go down the hall and say, hey, really struggling with this legal question, or hey, I'm really struggling with this personal thing. In a firm like mine of our size, I have come up with people and we have experienced life stages together in both practice and personally, and that creates a deeper bond, I think. So I think it's really important to have those relationships, to be able to lean on one another. But if you think about it as lawyers, one of our main jobs is to serve our clients, right? To make connections, to serve our clients. And how you operate in your firm is a trajectory for how you operate in practice. You're building that skill. So there are a number of people that I've maintained connections with that have left our law firm and have then become clients because we had such a good relationship at the firm. And so I definitely think that that is important. And also, as you're just starting out, it's a good idea to try on every type of law for size and figure out what you like, what you don't like. But don't be afraid to approach, take the initiative to approach a partner that may do some work in the area that you're interested in and say, hey, I really like, employment litigation. I'd really like to learn some more about that. You would be surprised at the number of people that would take you up on that opportunity and take you out to lunch or take you to court or whatnot. And oftentimes it just takes that initial ask, may take 2 or 3 times. But don't assume that because a partner is busy or maybe working with your door closed for a period of time, doesn't mean that they're not interested in developing and helping you in your career. So don't be afraid to make that connection and make that ask, because it could really help you out.
And something I noticed, almost all of you touched on too, was networking and getting to know other people and the importance of like a larger circle. Emily, you want to just kind of speak to how networking has helped you in your career and any tips you have on that?
Yeah, so I'm actually a remarkably awkward human being. I'm very introverted. It's not easy for me sometimes to network with people. And I've done it, but I've done it for a long time. And the reality is you kind of have to. Trust me, I tried to fight it, but you can't, and you shouldn't, because when I, opened myself up to more networking, more and more good things happened for me. So, like I said, I was at legal aid for a long time. And when I decided to leave, I thought I wanted to go do private practice family law. Obviously I'm not doing that anymore, but I decided to do it. And because I had built the network that I had, when I started talking to the lawyers that I knew that I was friends with, in legal aid and outside, I told them, thinking about doing this, where I'm going, da, 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 da. I didn't have to ask for letters of recommendation to my new job. They called my new firm owner and told her, you should hire this girl. Like, you should. You really, really should. She's phenomenal. She's fantastic. She's amazing. This is how I work with her. So eventually, it turns out that if you network and really, and I kind of felt like it was organic, which is probably the only way I can, God bless them. So when it was finally time for me to make that shift, I found that there was like this whole group of people who were quietly cheering me on the whole time. And that was a result of networking that I never imagined. I pictured it very much like I pictured it when I was at 1L at Wake Forest, and very awkward and rigid and, hello, Mr. Partner Man, please, notice me, And as I've gotten older, I've realized that that frame of networking is a thing, but it's so much bigger than that. So it's really benefited me a lot. Same thing happened with my new job, I had a lot of goodwill, and that went really, really far with the folks that hired me recently. So, it's invaluable to do, and it doesn't have to be the way that you're picturing from law school. I promise it doesn't, because I can't do it. I still haven't figured it out. But it can really be something that, really turns your career into something you could never imagine.
Andrew?
Yeah, so, networking is, a key aspect of what we do, and I actually have to shout out the NCBA because I got my first job at a NCBA event. Basically, there was a NCBA event at, I went to Elon, so the NCBA event at Elon, and I was just, went up and started talking to a partner at the firm that I ended up getting an internship and then getting another internship and then getting hired. And it was, I wasn't going out seeking out that opportunity. I was just genuinely interested in, I think he had a sign for antitrust, complex commercial litigation. I was like, what is that? I have no idea what that is. What does that even mean? He was a fantastic person and still a great mentor, but just putting yourself out there and asking questions, I think, is really important. And one thing that before I was a lawyer, I was a tennis coach, and one of my mentors in tennis and coaching and building a business, and one of my mentors in law, they both agreed that in a profession where you're providing services, one of the keys is being known, liked, and trusted. So if you're, people know who you are, that's a big, they're not gonna hire you if they don't know who you are. If they like you, that's, even further, if they trust you, then you got a really good shot at getting hired. So I think, the first step in that is being known, and how do you get known, making relationships and, meeting people and trying to actually really build relationships and like finding connections with people. I think, being a lawyer, and I'll be honest here, sometimes as a law student or as a, I'll say this, for a minority, sometimes it's I talk to law students, it's like, well, this person may not necessarily look like me, what do I have a connection? Like, how am I gonna build a connection with them? But sometimes, you could have a mentor or a relationship with someone that you would never realize how much you have in connection with, or how willing they are to want to help you. And that's not the case every single time, but I've had, great mentors, great people that don't look like me, necessarily aren't from the same part of the country, didn't have the same background in growing up, but we met, we started growing relationships, started talking about different things, and we found something that we connected on. And having that, relationship has helped me tremendously. So I kind of give advice to networking. It's like, naturally we kind of go towards people that, you're either the same age or, demographic or something like that, because we're kind of comfortable, but it's difficult, I'm not gonna lie, it's scary, it's uncomfortable, it's hard, it's difficult, all those things, but at the other side of all those things can be something really great, building those relationships and making that effort, it's worth it.
Yeah, and to piggyback off what Andrew was saying, part of our job in getting clients and promoting ourselves professionally is to build our own brand, right? So the more people you meet, the more people associate you hopefully with positive memories, right, of that networking event. And I'm in the litigation space, and so I can't tell you how many times I've been opposite someone that I've met through a bar activity, and it is so much nicer to start the litigation posture off with somebody that you can call and say, hey, Jeremy, we got a case together. What do you think? And it doesn't mean that we're not going to sit there and advocate for our clients or work really hard to prove our position, but you have a mutual understanding and respect that you might not always find elsewhere. And so I have found that immensely valuable in my practice. And I also think that networking and peopling, as we say, is just a really good skill to have, regardless of what you end up doing. Your career trajectory could have you in one place your entire career, but chances are it's not. And you're gonna move from place to place as you kind of evolve and grow. And so having a foundation, a network is really important. And I really, in my practice, have thrown myself into bar association activities. And a lot of people will ask me, well, why do you spend so much time doing that? I mean, I'm really passionate about it, but the truth is that I've also, as much as I've put into these associations, I've equally gotten back, if not more. And I think part of that is just the opportunity for networking and meeting so many great people.
So I'm gonna jump in here a little bit too.
Please.
So obviously I love to network. It comes a little bit naturally to me. I'm an extrovert, but one thing I've definitely used, and I've been encouraging my friends and other associates at my firms to use the buddy system. And I think it's the best way to network is if you bring a friend with you, you already have one friendly face. And they know people, you know people, you now know twice as many people in the room, and then you're not standing there awkwardly in the corner with like your free beverage, staring at people, trying to figure out how to like break into a group. And it's a lot easier to, if you like open yourself up, than other people come to your group. I've also been having a lot of success with asking the partners at my firm, like, hey, I'm going to this event, would you like to come? Because now I get a great one-on-one with a partner and kind of get to learn more about their practice, and they get to see me and my element shining. So I've been trying to use that as that, that word makes sense. Thank you. And then the last one too, I thought was really interesting. I actually had someone reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I had met her once at an event. She was going to another event and invited me to go to the event with her. And I had not been originally invited, but I showed up, and I thought that was a really smart, bold way to continue those work relationships. Because we met at like a fundraising event. We had a great time with each other. I remember her, but getting that personalized invitation made me more likely to show up. And then I met her whole network, and it just kind of keeps growing and building. And I think it's a really cool part of our jobs, and so much of our job is client focused and client central. Also, how much longer do we have, Cheyenne?
20 minutes.
I would say 15-20, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I know we're not on our normal time schedule, so. Okay, I want to shift to kind of the bad side. What do you do if you're not happy? What do you do if you're being overworked? What if you're doing if you have conflict in the office? And I know that's like a big question, but like, who do I go to if I have questions or I am a little bit unhappy with the situation? Like, how do we handle these harder questions?
So everyone is different, everyone processes conflict differently, and everybody works through challenging situations differently. So I don't think that there's a one size fits all answer. If you are in a larger practice, that goes back to kind of the initial comment that I had of, having someone in there that you can confide in and ask about. You know, hey, this partner is really difficult and I don't understand him. I don't understand why he likes things this way. And having that person to say, oh, I've worked with this person. I understand what you're talking about. That provides a level of understanding that will help you process the difficulty. So that's kind of step one. But if you're really unhappy in your work environment, you know, life is just too short, okay? So, you know, every job comes with its challenge. Every case comes with its challenge. I will tell you that I've had certain cases where it's just something about the case that just drives you bananas, and that will happen. So I think you need to look inward and say, is this really a situational unhappiness? Can I ride the wave? Or is this more of a, I don't like the work environment, I don't like what I'm doing? And I think that that takes time. I think you need to evaluate that. I don't think you need to be too quick to throw in the towel, because again, I think our job inherently has its challenges. But if you're unhappy with, let's just say a particular case that you're working on, or a particular partner that likes something a certain way, you know, I think one of the skills that I wish that I had learned how to do more effectively earlier, is just that open communication. So going to that partner and saying, you know, I really don't understand why you do things this way. It takes us 3 times longer and makes no sense. You can say it a little more tactfully. Communication with that person is always an option. And I think oftentimes people don't take the opportunity to have difficult conversations internally, because you're navigating all the external conflicts you got to deal with. And so sometimes it's just about having a moment to have that conversation and ask the question about, why do we do things this way? It's really, you know, bothering me, and expressing that. I think you'll find that most people are pretty open to learning if you have a better way to do something, but you have to be able to vocalize it. I think that the worst thing that you can do is just ruminate on the unhappy feelings that you have for months at a time, and it won't get better. It's a snowball problem, right? Because then everything the person does or everything the case presents, it's like, oh my gosh, here we go again. So finding a way to effectively communicate and suggest a better approach, I think, is really important. And, you know, you need to also, I think one of the things that it took me a really long time to learn is, you know, your mental health and happiness is crucial to your success in being a lawyer. If you're miserable, you're not going to be effective in the courtroom, you're not going to be effective in your practice. So protect that. You know, if you acknowledge that there's something about your mental health or your daily routine that's really frustrating to you, is really making you unhappy or sad, address it. Don't just sit on it, because I think it'll fester and just become a worse problem for you.
I'm gonna start at because we said we were gonna do the bad stuff, right? So I'm gonna start at the really, really bad end of this, really bad end. And then we're gonna talk about maybe, you know, the more correct. The really, really bad end of this may be far field, but I feel like I need to underscore it because it happened to me. If you are in a job that is asking you to do something that is inherently unethical to the practice of law, and you have tried to be familiar with that, you try to talk to people about it, and it's not getting you anywhere, quit the job. Leave the job. Call me, I will give you my phone number, I'll give you my email, I will help you, we'll figure it out, quit the job. You worked way, way, way too hard. A lot of us don't. I know for me personally, I don't have a huge safety net underneath me. The law license is the safety net. I spent 7 years with it together, you know? So don't do that. There are boundaries with how bad something can be that are beyond your mental health, they're beyond your legal, you know, your ethical obligations, all of that. I'm not kidding. Call me. I've had attorneys. I've offered this before. I've had attorneys call me. We figured it out. I'm dead serious. From there, if we're talking about like the unhappy parts of jobs, I think it really does come down to really, and I think you underscored it really well, knowing yourself and knowing what is driving that unhappiness. Because it could be something, you know, that is a fleeting, it could be something that's kind of deeply woven into it. You don't have to practice that area of law, you know. I left the public sector, went into private practice family law. It was not for me. I wanted to see if it was for me, and I learned, and I'm so happy I learned that lesson, and I learned it in an incredible place. But I learned that lesson, you know, and that's also okay. I think on the other hand, like, you don't want to make things, you don't want to, it's a difficult needle to thread, you know. You don't want to make a rash decision. You're thinking about things like, I don't want to be a job hopper, da, 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 da. I think in general, that's kind of softening some anyway. But at the same time, you only have one life, and the sunken cost fallacy is a fallacy for a reason. We spend so much of our lives at work. Don't spend so much time in your life, like so much of the time you have in your life towards something that is just not, you know. And it's not going to all the time. The law is a challenging thing for a reason. There's a lot of reasons why people don't become lawyers. But there's limits to that. And when it starts impacting your mental health and mental wellness, you really do need to, like, that's the alarm clock to figure out what's going on there. Also get a therapist.
Yes.
Have a therapist. Every lawyer should have a therapist. You should have, I think every person should have a therapist. That's the whole thing. Get a therapist. Figure that out. They will help you explore that in a place that feels safe and confidential.
And I agree with all of that. It's tough, I mean, because, you know, as when you're practicing and I'm on my second firm, but you know, when you go to that first firm and you get that first job out of law school, you're like, okay, this is it. You know, I passed the bar, I'm a lawyer, I told everyone I'm gonna work at this place.
I'm here
I'm gonna
forever.
be here forever, you know, and maybe you are, and like, maybe that place is fantastic, the place I was at was amazing, fantastic. But for others, my wife also practices, law, and her first place, it just wasn't for her. People were great, firm was great, it just wasn't for her. So one thing I would say is lean into your friends and family, you know, because they know you outside of law. They know you, you know, probably sometimes better than you know yourself, you know. Sometimes you can lie to yourself, but you know, if there's some red flags, and you know a red flag when you see it, you can feel it, you know. And sometimes talking with your friends, talking with your family. One thing that I started doing that's really helped me is journaling and like writing things down and like writing it down and then just, you know, free for all there and then stop and then I'll come back and look and I'm kind of like, okay, well, this makes sense. This is a valid point. This is something I can kind of get over. This I can kind of get over. And but like physically writing and doing it with a pen has really been helping me. You know, obviously therapy, I think is great. But, you know, leaning into your friends and family, as far as like in the office, communicating, I think, you know, it's better to, you know, something scary and difficult, but it's better to have conversations, maybe go out to lunch with the person if you're having a conflict or misunderstanding. You know, sometimes, and lawyers are interesting people, you know, sometimes the partner could be thinking one thing and you're thinking this thing, and y'all both don't really want to say anything to each other because y'all are both, you know, kind of awkward or not necessarily awkward, but y'all both aren't outgoing and you both don't want to talk. And the partner doesn't want to upset the associate, and the associate doesn't want to, is afraid of the partner. And maybe try going to lunch, you know, try doing something outside of it. If that doesn't work, finding someone else who's worked with that partner, who has experience with that partner, maybe the paralegal, you know, who's been there for 20 years and has seen people come and go, and they may have advice on what this person really likes, or this person, you know, you can get brownie points if you do this, you know, or they really like this, or don't ever do that, you know. I think doing those things help, but it's tough, getting into your family and friends, and I think last thing you said is we work so much of the day, like, you know, we're working or at the office longer than we're doing other things. if you are miserable and you hate it, life is too short. And I'm being very honest, I'm going tomorrow to the memorial for my cousin. And she was a banker, worked, brilliant person, amazing person, the kindest person. But banking, working in big time banking, you work a ton of hours. And unfortunately, she passed away unexpectedly with heart condition. And I remember talking with her. She lived life though, and that's something that I want to tell people, just live your life, find things that you find joy in, happiness, fulfillment. And if you're not getting that, there's LinkedIn, there's networking, call people who got to network, will grow, where you're at now is not where you have to be the rest of your time.
So all of you talked about work-life balance in that. So I guess my question is it a myth? Does it exist? What's the secret? Like, I know I personally have struggled with it at different points, and it's always kind of a challenge to figure out what the balance is. So do you have any hot tips?
I think that one of the things that again has taken me a really long time to learn is how to set a boundary. So this job will take every ounce of your time if you allow it to do so. And just because you're a first year associate doesn't mean you can't set a boundary. Now, I think you get more confident in setting boundaries as you progress through the profession. And so I understand why people don't feel as comfortable when they're first starting out. Now, I would not recommend going in on your first week of, practice and setting a boundary that you'd like to go home at 4:30 every day and not log back on until 9, right? I mean, I say that with a level of, realism here, but I think that because our practice is so instantaneous, right? You get a nasty email from opposing counsel at 5 p.m. on a Friday, and our immediate response is, oh my gosh, I must correct this person before the weekend begins. I mean, I have to tell them how wrong they are. No, you don't. You can put your phone away, not pick that back up. Now, there are certain things in our life, particularly litigation, where it is urgent. You have to do it. And so I get those situations, but, put your phone away for 2 hours when you go home, but really spend time with your family. That's allowed. People don't think it is, but it actually is. And I think, going back to kind of what I said last time, protect your mental health, protect the things that are important in your life. Because if you set an example that I'm always going to respond to your email at 3 a.m., then you're not creating an environment where you can set a boundary for yourself.
I think sometimes what I thought of work-life balance when I was a law student is I pictured it like a teeter-totter. Right? So I'm trying to keep the teeter-totter level, and there's swings and blocks that go on either side that whack it out of balance itself, right? And the reality is work-life balance as a lawyer is more kind of like an ocean, right? Ultimately, the ocean kind of, it rises, it falls, it settles at like a level sometimes. Sometimes the sea is really quiet, things are good. It can be really balanced. Sometimes it's not like that, and there are troughs, there are crests, in what that balance kind of has to look like. You want to make sure that you're aware of that. You can't have a tsunami every day. If that's the situation, that's maybe a sign that things are not well. You also can't have flat sea all the time. It's not particularly productive, and ships don't go. So you kind of have to have both. The other part of it, and I think it's so important to talk about boundaries, because, and this is my 2 cents, women are not acculturated to have boundaries. You're not taught to have boundaries with people. We are taught to be and give to your children, give to your spouse, give to your parents, do all of this stuff all of the time. And so sometimes, at least in my own personal experience, it can be very difficult. And I think part of that is attributed to the fact that that's a whole new thing. Nobody taught me about that. And it's sometimes I noticed with my male counterparts, no one had to teach them how to do that. They do it. And they knew instinctively how to do that. So, that's really important to learn how to do. People struggle with that. I struggle with it a lot. So, having those boundaries will help you kind of craft what you're looking for.
And yeah, I'll just add on just boundaries, and I think I look at it as like coming from an athletic background. So like if you're training 10 hours a day, every single day, don't do recovery, you're gonna get injured. And then now that you're injured, now you can't compete, right? That doesn't make any sense. For law, you can be having, I don't know, 50 hour, 60 hour, whatever week, really tough time, a 200-hour month or I work with billable hours, so like I track my time in billable hours. My wife does contingencies, but she doesn't have to do billable hours, so we've balanced on that. But for my world, billable hours, if you have a 200, hour month, that's a tough month, that's a lot of work, because you're working on top of that, that's non-billable. But if you do that, you're doing that a month or 2 months in a row, you need to take some time to relax. You need to take some time to care for yourself. Your mind, we're getting paid to come up with ideas and be creative and craft arguments, at least in litigation and contracts or drafting contracts, I think. But your mind needs rest, just like the rest of your body. If you don't rest it, it's gonna not perform as well as you want it to. So I think being at a firm or being with people that understand that, are willing and able to, go hard when you need to, but you also need to take time. It's recovery. It's not, those things that you're doing are needed and necessary for you to perform well. I think as far as setting boundaries, setting calendar invites, putting on your calendar a specific time that maybe, you're gonna go to lunch and walk around or do a mile or something like that. Put that on your calendar, you get some meeting, something like that, where it's organized and it'll keep you honest. It'll keep you reminded to do it. I think that's a good idea. But it's something that I think as lawyers, we just need to focus on.
So we're actually gonna round it up, but thank you to each of you, that was so great. I know I learned a bunch too, just by hearing it, it's so, I like panels like this because I feel like each person has their own perspective and is at a different place of life or a different firm that's had something a little bit different happen, so. Thank you so much for each of your guys' stories and sharing with us, we hope you, today.
Was amazing. That's amazing. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Please feel free to stretch, walk around, get loose, grab some pastries, we got coffee. I am Ty Cruz and you're watching Disney Channel. So please feel free to do so, make them with yourselves. Yes, I am Ty Cruz. I'm sorry. Hello. And Media Land as well. So for our next session, we have Courtney Leach, she's a therapist. She's amazing. She is a dynamic speaker. She uses different techniques to turn pain into empowerment. And for our session, she will talk about how imposter syndrome is a myth. One of you is an imposter. Not really. And oftentimes, as a first generation student, law student, or a lawyer, you psych yourself out because you've never done it before. Like, oh, is this what we're doing? Do I belong here? Well, Ms. Lee, Courtney Lee, therapist Lee, will tell you that you do belong here. Give it up for Courtney Lee.
Okay, they can actually see me. I love that we started with the meditation because I'm gonna say who I am, but we're gonna do a meditation in a minute as well. And the reason I'm telling you now is because for my folks who are nibbling, when we do the meditation, can you not nibble? Because I know the and I've never had to Heimlich someone. I don't want that on my bingo card of life. So when we get to the breath, just kind of take a pause wherever you're chewing. So thank you so much. So Courtney Leak, I am from Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I currently live in Panama City, Panama, so I get the award for farthest travel. And I'm just honored to be here. I've been in the field, great with feelings, bad with numbers since '09. Is when I graduated from Winthrop University and have been doing this work ever since. I'm a wellness curator, so I work a lot in creating healing experiences for individuals, couples, families, corporations. I do speaking, I do training. I do have an ongoing, like 1 hour session kind of practice, but I do a lot of other things as well. So, and I can say more individually after my session. So we're about to start the meditation. And one of the things I'm gonna ask you to do is notice what your body is saying. What we know now is that many of us are disconnected from the neck down because life has taught us that our brain is our safe place. However, 70% of our information is being gathered in our body first. When you know you're anxious, your heart had already started beating fast. Your hands had already gotten clammy. You were already probably a little unstable on your feet. Because your body gathers information, it sends it up the vagus nerve to the back of your brain. Your amygdala says, you in danger. And then your brain tells you what to do about that. And we think, oh my gosh, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling anxious. No, you were feeling it down here long before it was up here. And so there's a lot of information in your body. So as we go through this meditation, I want you to, of course, follow along, but notice what your body is telling you in the meditation, okay? We're gonna do the same thing we did earlier with that. I loved that you started with that breath. Anytime you're feeling activated, we use the word, I've done a lot of work with people, survivors of mass shootings, and so they actually don't like the word triggered. So I use the word activated, it's the same thing. I want to say it's the same thing. So when we're feeling activated, one of the first things we can do is take a cleansing breath, which is a breath where the exhale is longer than the inhale. And you want to inhale through your nose and then exhale through your mouth. And you want to give them, so I had Starbucks, so I apologize if this is going to be bad, but you want to give it a little on the exhale, okay? We're going to do 3 of those, and this will be your first step. Just notice what you feel as we all collectively do those breaths. And then I'm going to ease you into the meditation from that place, all right? So kind of wiggle into a place of comfort. And then when you're ready, and you can close your eyes or soften your gaze, trust your body, it'll tell you which one is safe. Breathe out where you are. And then inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. And I want you to imagine you are walking around this beautiful campus. Just admiring the trees, noticing the grass, hearing the animals. The day is warm and the sun is shining, but it's not overbearing. And you're listening to the rustling of the wind. And just feel yourself walking heel toe, heel toe. And I want you to notice as you're walking down the path, you start to see an image, but it's fuzzy, and yet it is familiar. Although you can't actually see it, you know that at the end of the path is the best version of you. And you want to get there so bad. So you quicken your step, heel toe, heel toe. And it feels like you're not getting any closer. You start to feel frustrated, start to give reasons why you can't get there. And you notice, as you are talking to yourself, somebody joins you. And they're confirming all the things that you're saying. And they are also familiar. They are a younger version of you that learned perfection and self-criticism and over-productivity. And they're like, yep, we're not gonna get there. It's not even real. People like us don't do things like that. And you start to notice what you feel in your body as they are talking, and you can't get to this other image. And I want you to pause your walk and look at them. And as you do, you notice that they're scared, that they're young and they're scared. And so you grab their hand and you turn to them and say, I know why you're doing this, and I think we can change it. And notice how they respond. Notice how you feel acknowledging them instead of ignoring or pushing or arguing back. And notice that as you do that, the image in the distance out of the corner of your eye starts to get clearer. You can see now. And so nervously, awkwardly, unsure, you and this younger version of yourself start to walk closer to the image, heel toe, heel toe. And that image starts to welcome you in. And then you can put your hand on your heart and show gratitude to yourself, the younger version, and the person you're becoming. And then I want you to take a deep breath in and exhale, holding them with you. Deep breath in, exhale, coming a little more back to this space. Deep breath in and exhale. Wiggle your toes, move your arms, maybe sway back and forth. The last thing I want you to do is open your eyes. So wait until you feel fully back in your body. And then once you open your eyes, I want you to look left and right and up and down before coming back to me. So what we all just did is what's called parts work. So there's a model in therapy called internal family systems by this guy, Richard Schwartz. And the model speaks about how as we experience life and get all the information of life, we start to develop sub-personalities, not multiple personalities, not multiple personalities, sub-personalities, which means as we're moving through life, we get information from our families, our communities, our schools, and the greater world, right? And as starting very little, we learn what people like about us and what they don't like about us. And we, because to belong is to survive, to be loved is to live, especially as a child. I knew very early I couldn't feed me. I knew very early that there was a difference when mommy was happy and mommy was not, teacher was happy and teacher was not. And so I would play up those parts of me that people liked, and I would play down and squash down and maybe even step on those parts of me people did not. And so a lot of us develop an inner critic, a part of us that, and the thing about IFS the book I would all recommend for you to read is No Bad Parts. This was my hardest part of doing IFS. I still don't like it, because I'm a Virgo. I like nice, like, I was like, this floor, the squares, like, I love it. I was like, oh, cool, there's some bad parts, let's get them on, let's toss them out. And my therapist was like, you have to love them the most. And I'm like, you that I pay you for this foolishness. But seriously, the whole point isn't to get rid of any of your parts. The whole point is somewhere in my life, my inner critic learned that the way to protect me was to stay on my back. And so that part is doing its job. It's doing its role. It is telling me not enough, not yet, more, faster, harder, bigger, stronger, quieter, calmer, passive, aggressive, neutral. It's constantly telling me how to be safe in a situation because it loves me and it's scared. Because it's also young. And so what I have realized in my work is that imposter syndrome has become this common phrase that discusses the part of us. And here's the reason I learned it, because I've not yet met the person who doesn't have imposter syndrome. So somebody should be the real McCoy. Like somebody who's not a narcissist should be walking around like, no, it's the shit. I'm just the shit. I'm good. I'm good. And I haven't met them yet. Everyone is like, oh, I'm just not sure quite yet. Or that one time in second grade, the teacher looked at me weird. And I'm like, you're a cardiologist. And they're like, but am I the best cardiologist? I'm like, I think so. Like, don't give me a scalpel and a heart. Like, I'm gonna be calling y'all. I'll be like, so someone gave me a scalpel and a heart. I can't do it. You know what I mean? And so I've not met them yet. And so I was like, oh, it's in us. It's not a real thing. It is a part trying to protect all of us by telling us that there's someone who's doing it perfectly and it's not us. Perfection, Brene Brown talks about how perfectionism is a 20-ton shield. Because we believe if we are perfect and everyone sees us as perfect, and not even if we are perfect, if we are seen as perfect. I don't have to be perfect, you just have to think I'm perfect. If I'm seen as perfect, then no one will know about all of this back here that I'm ashamed of, that I'm hiding, that's a secret, that is generational. You know what I mean? And I think for first gens, I've worked with first gens of all types, first gens in career, first gens in the country, first gens in the first person brave enough to come out in their family, like a lot of first gens. And there's a lot of shame back there because we are carrying the dream or the jealousy. Hear that? The dream or the jealousy of the people behind us. And it can be super, it can, like, even as I say it, I'm like, oh, it feels gross to admit that people that love us, birthed us, wanted us, can still feel like they didn't get their chance, their opportunity, their experience, or we're better than them in some way. And so then I'm trying to prove to you that it was good that I did it. It was good that I'm different. It was good. It's good. I'm good, right? It's good because again, to belong is to live. To be loved is to be safe. Or it's the everything my people had to sacrifice for me, everything that was given up for me. I know as a single mom, I'm a single mom. My mother was a single mother. And my mom was very much like, oh, I can't because I'm a single mom. She would talk about her dream to go to grad school and all of these things. And it was always me that was in the way. And so it's really important for me that my son doesn't ever feel that. I'm very much doing all the things, but even that is unhealthy. I can't, be his mama and travel and do the speaking and own the business. And like, I get to be tired. I get to be like, I can't. But that part of me that is carrying that negative narrative that I'm a burden, and I don't want him to ever feel that way, is over functioning. Because that's a part of me that is now shown up that's like super mom. because of the information that I took in. Does that make sense? And so we're all developing that. And let's be clear, you got a bunch of parts in there. You have protector parts that are designed to be pro-social and make people love you and like you. You have protector parts that'll burn this place to the ground. They're called firefighters, actually. If y'all ever seen a house after the fire got put out, the water damage actually destroys the house more than the fire does. It like gets all the way in. And so firefighters are your parts that like blow it up. It's the affair, it's the addiction, it's the lashing out. I call one of mine the banshee. That girl, she's a wild girl. And so then you have those parts, and then you have exiles, parts of you that are usually very young, very scared, and got a message very early they weren't worthy. And so you push them behind. And so they're often hungry for attention, for experience. They're the one that loves the unavailable partner. They're the one that wants to be a part of that cool group of mean girls, that exile piece. And then there's the whole self who is supposed to be managing all of this, and most of us don't even know what's happening. So there's a lot going on inside of us, and then y'all had to take the bar. You know what I mean? Like when we think about all that we carry and manage and deal with, and then all that we are expected to do, be parents and love people and be a part of a family and have a career and a high stakes career. It's a lot on us. I can't remember, I think you were like, go to therapy. I tell people all the time, you can't do anything well if you're not well. You can't love your partner, your kid, your friends, do your job, drive. You ever drove with somebody who wasn't okay? And you're like, so you just go get over, huh? So, yeah, oh no, that car, oh, like, I'm just like, think about it. Think about people in your life who are not well. Think about when you have not been well and how you fun. I can't make a coffee. I'm like spilling and dropping stuff. Like, we can't do anything well if we're not well. And so doing that work of connecting with the self and loving yourself. The whole point is to love ourselves. The gentleman who said the thing earlier, I wrote it down because it's exactly what we have to do. So now we've all met our inner critic, right? And now your job is to know them, to like them, and to trust them. And what that looks like first is spending time journaling, walking, meditating, connecting, getting curious. How old are you? I'm 12. What was happening in my life when I was 12? Where did this critic come from? What are you trying to protect me from? What do you believe about me and the world that makes you show up in this way? Why do you use the tools of anxiety or negative self-talk or self-sabotage to get my attention? And how can I build a relationship with you where you don't need that? How can you trust me that if you just tap me on my shoulder and say, I don't know if we did that right, that you know I'm going to turn back and be like, let's sit with that. I want to hear from you. The goal is to speak for our parts, not from them. Because a lot of us are getting hijacked by our parts because they don't trust us. So my inner critic doesn't trust me. And so then Tyquise asked me something and my inner critic's like, boom, Courtney, I got it. I'm gonna answer the question. And then I'm like having an out of body experience. Why did I say that? Why did I do it that way? Why am I still at work at 10 o'clock? There's nobody here. The lights are off. Because my parts are like, she don't know you. Let me take this on. And so that inner critic for most of us is telling us there's a person or a version of us out there that is better than this. And that is what we should be getting to. That is who we should be. And that is where we get imposters. And the problem with that is there's no goal. Like there's actually no real goal because no one can tell me who the real McCoy is. But I'm like, okay, if you're the imposter, who's the genuine article? Who are, like, give me their name, because let's study them. Let's see what they're doing. There are cameras everywhere. Let's find a hacker who can follow their day. Like, who are they? If you're the imposter, and no one has that answer because it's internal. It's a belief system in us that is trying to get us to continue to achieve. And so through knowing our parts, connecting with ourselves, and also just loving the hell out of who we are right now, in this moment. We do not take care of things we don't love. We do not treat things well that we don't love. I don't love this water bottle. I'm gonna recycle it because I love the earth, but I don't care about the water bottle. So I'm gonna drink out of it, throw it in the recycling bin and keep it moving. I'll never think about that water bottle again. I love my son. And I take good care of him as a result. The problem with that is because we all have limited capacity, if I'm not taking care of me too, if I'm not honoring me as well, if I'm believing myself to be an imposter as a mother, he's gonna pick that up. And he's gonna carry that because he sees me as his example. Children do what they see, not what we say. I got a lot of words from the people in my family, and I did what they showed. Because what I want to do is belong to them. And they're telling me to do it different, but if I'm different, I don't belong. Why would I do it different? I want to drink too. I want to party too. I want to go to school too. I want to do what you did, even if it's not right for me, because I need to belong. And that critic is like, absolutely, do that and do this and do this and do this. Again, from a place of love and fear, that's my job to hold and care. And so what is really important, again, is to know that person. And once you know them, I don't care what they are saying to you, how they're acting, what they've cost you in the past, your job is to love them. Is to be like, I get it. And honestly, thank you. Because if we're honest, a lot of us wouldn't be here without that part. Without my critic, I don't know, like, I probably would have been fine. Like, let me just find a rich man. Let me do, let me do something different. My critic pushed me. She helped me. She encouraged me. She made me get up when I didn't want to. And so I'm grateful for her. And now I've got it. And I love you, and I'm listening to you, and I'm open to what you have to say. And I've also got it. And I want you to trust me, and I'm going to trust you, that you're going to give me the information, and then I'm going to do the work from there. So I don't know where my time is. I have an assignment.
Doing great.
Oh, good. So I have an assignment, and we don't have paper and pen because we're green. So I'd love it for people to pull out your notes. And you're gonna write yourself a letter. But before you do that, I want you and your notes app to go stand perfectly in one of these boxes in the room. Find a box and stand perfectly in it. And perfect, I want 2 feet. I don't care if you're a size 14. Get in the box perfectly. And this is perfection. And I want you to sit for a minute about what this feels like, for real. Because we all want to be perfect, but I'm often like, do we? Like, yeah, we did it. We're all perfectly in the box. We fit in the corners. We've met the thing. Just popcorn. What are you noticing about you being in your perfect box? How does it feel? Say more. Why don't you like it?
Unstable.
Unstable. Who else? Oh, say that again. Silence. Yeah. Yes, because you're trying to be like, now, because I'm like, oh, Lord, am I all in the box? And I'm like, oh shit, I don't fit in the box. Like, there's a lot of Courtney around here. She not in the box. Yeah, I'm also disconnected. Nobody's together. If I'm like, oh, I need something, but I have to be perfect, you gotta be perfect. You may have all the things I need, or half the things I need, or at least one good idea, and I can't get to you. I can't give you what you need because I have to hold on to perfection. I gotta be perfect in this space. And so what I would love for you to do is just connect for a moment in your body what perfection actually feels like. It's boring, it's restrictive, it's silencing, it's dull, it's lonely. And then what would it mean to let it go? To say, oh, I don't really need perfection. How would you change what you're doing right now if you let perfection go? Yep. What if you, and now that you've let it go, you can do whatever you want. You don't, like, this is fine, but you can also be like, that's not being perfect, are you? Oh, that's green. Oh my God. I can move around, I can skip, I can jump, I can show my new kicks. Because I let perfection go. Because it's not real, and if it is real, it sucks. There's so much fun in the gray, in the brilliant, in the different. Have you ever collaborated with a bunch of different people? The things you create, the opportunities that come out of it, the things that you know that I didn't know and I know that you didn't know. That is what it's all about. It's about the diversity of our brains and our experiences and our lives that makes this life rich and worth it. And I can get in my perfect little box and yeah, I've done it. Because then what? If we stay in the perfect box, then what? Can I travel here? Can I learn from here? My son said to me last year, he was like, I just want to know everything, don't you? And I was like, absolutely not. I'm 41. If I know everything already, that sucks. I want to learn forever. And I don't want to be the expert. Because if you know everything, people gonna come to you all the time. I'd love to be like, oh, I don't know. I'm not the one for that answer. You know what I mean? Like, it is an opportunity to always learn and explore and be different and dynamic and great and cool. This year, I'm learning how to day trade. And it's working, y'all. I'm like, oh, look at this. Because but I didn't know how to do it. And I was like, I couldn't, and my pastor was like, who are you? What are you talking about? Like, you hate it. I have a business degree, but let's not talk about it. But my, all the numbers, like I said earlier, I can't do numbers. I had all these narratives about myself. And then I was like, but what if I learned? And what if I let myself be imperfect? And what if I tried something new? And now we're going to the new Universal at the end of the year because I was able to pay for that with the day trading. And so being open to releasing perfection because it doesn't exist. And then accepting that what you are experiencing is your inner critic trying to keep you safe. And if your critic trusts you, it won't work that hard anymore. There is no imposter because there is no real McCoy. Everyone's authentic. And what I also know is that your correction where you want to grow lives in compassion. People who can't do accountability, people who struggle to own their mistakes, people who struggle to grow, don't like themselves. They are holding on to a false narrative of themselves and how great they are so strong because the truth is they don't actually like them. The more I've learned to love and like me, the more I'm like, oh yeah, I was wrong. I did that. That shit I do. Did I say something crazy to you? I say crazy stuff all the time. That's me. I know me. I love me and I can own that I probably made a mistake there. I messed up. I'm sorry. Because I love me enough to know all of me now. I don't need to be in the box. And I can also be curious and be like, why do we do that? Do we want to stop doing that? Because what I now know is it's not, oh, Courtney's terrible. Courtney did a not good thing. Oh, Courtney and her core is worthless. Courtney made a bad choice. And it's a different place from which I love myself, which is a different place from which I correct myself. The same thing we're doing like kids, we've learned, you can't smack your kids around and think they're gonna be better. They're gonna maybe listen from fear, but they're not gonna be better. But if you come to them and be like, we're better than that, son. I know you to be someone who doesn't hurt people. So I'm confused about what happened that you would do that to your friend. They're gonna be like, I am somebody who doesn't hurt people. It's the same way with yourself. When I love myself and be like, I know me to be someone who values kindness, and I was ugly to that person. I feel convicted. Let me go correct that. That's how you learn to be accountable. That's how through self-love and self-compassion. So I want you to kind of be free. You've given up perfection, meander around and find yourself back in a space. And I want you to write a letter to yourself from that version that was the highest version in your in the meditation. So that highest self, I want that version to write a letter to you and your critic now about what it's gonna take to get to them, what you're gonna need to release and what you're gonna need to hold on to. And then later, I want you to record that on your voice notes, and here's why. We are doing studies around neural networks and neural pathways now, the parts of our brain that store information and tell us how to behave in pattern. And what we're learning is that hearing your own voice externally helps to change your internal voice. It's different if I'm like, you're amazing, you're great, you're awesome. It may feel good. It's different when I tell me I'm amazing, I'm great, and I'm awesome. And it's different when I'm doing it like right now, like out loud, than when I'm hearing it. And so recording this letter and just listening to it, it will start to change the way your brain sees you. I have like so many voice notes now. I have one from my younger self. I have an affirmation one. I have one for like, when you want to crash out, listen to this. And it's like, you're better than this. You have things to lose. You are not as mad as you feel you are. You're probably just activated. Let's take a breath. And it works. Like I'll hear myself. I have one because I don't like to fly and I fly a lot. I have one that's like, you're gonna die. And if we die, then what? Do we want to die freaking out or do we want to die and surrender? But let's take a breath, like, you know what I mean? And me hearing myself is like, oh, I've got this. I don't have to show up this way anymore. So right now, I want you to write your letter, and then later, I want you to record it and just test it out for a month. Just playing it. You could be brushing your teeth, still doing your thing. You don't have to sit in lotus and listen to yourself. But what happens if you just have it on, hearing yourself read to you about how there is no imposter, you are the genuine article, and you have nothing to prove but that you love yourself. All right, so explore your freedom, your lack of perfection, and imperfectly find your way back to a space where you can write yourself your letter. And then when we're done, I'm super happy to take questions as well, if you want. I'm gonna go get some juice. So we're not gonna share our letters. Do not share your letters. Do not share the information from your letters. Did everyone hear me say that?
Yes.
Because anything you're touching in the beginning, any new information you have is probably connected to a wound. Come on in, the water's fine. It's probably connected to a wound or something that you are not yet healed. And I tell people all the time, speak from your scars, not your wounds, unless you are with someone who can care for your wound. So if I have a wound, I'm not gonna be like, oh, I got a wound. You don't even go to a regular doctor for a wound. You go to a wound doctor. But a lot of us on social media and all these places are just sharing our wounds with the world, and people don't have the ability to care for them. And then they do something ugly with it and then we're destroyed. And I'm like, yeah, because they got a wound doctor. You're gonna have friends who aren't wound doctors, your parents probably aren't your wound doctors. Like, let's just be honest, call things a thing. So I would love to hear from just a couple of people about the experience, but not the details, if they are comfortable sharing. And any questions?
Hey, everybody, I'm Sheila.
Sheila.
Hey, I thought the experience was good because as a young lawyer, I do find myself as a perfectionist. So we say in the square, I'm like, which square? Square. Square. So sometimes I am overthinking, right? When you said be free, I'm like, how do I do that? And I'm looking around at others and some people step down and I'm like, oh, okay, this is how you put yourself out there, you know? I don't have all the answers, and, sometimes I'm expected to have them, so it's nice to kind of just look around and see others.
Yeah, I think what you're speaking to around not having all the answers is the importance of tribe and community. Like, I need the people in my life to reflect where I'm going. Because I'm going to mirror them. I'm going to look to them for information, for support. And if they're out here trying to be perfect, I'm gonna guilt myself back into the box. So I love people who mess up, who do it imperfectly, who are like, oh no, whatever, like, I love that, and I try to have those people in my community, and they are professional, they are successful, they got big money, but they're also free. And so that's just a food for thought in your law career and in your life. Find people who mirror who you wanna be.
It feels really honest.
Mm,
I'm a litigator, and I think at some level, I mean, all lawyers are, we're all taught to be persuasive. I mean, I could sell a polar bear nice.
mhm.
And so it's easy for me to sell myself on things that are maybe not a complete narrative, or maybe aren't true, or maybe don't look at that part because she's messy.
Mhm,
And it really is like this, and sell yourself a story that's not complete.
yeah,
So it felt really honest to just be really honest.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So what I would encourage, the reason I want you to record it and just listen to it, if you don't create a practice around something new, it won't show up when you need it. When people are like, oh, I learned about breath work, and the next time I'm activated, I'm like, don't lie to me. Lie to yourself, don't lie to me. You're gonna do the same thing you always do, unless you are practicing the breath work when you don't need it, so that when your brain is calm, it is building a neural pathway. And so listening to the letter, connecting with those parts is gonna be really important, because by the time the critic is pushing you, you're already offline. So creating a practice is gonna be really helpful. So one of the things that I love to do is use labyrinth. I like to walk labyrinths. I like to use finger labyrinth. Does everyone know what a labyrinth is? So a labyrinth looks like a maze, but the difference is there's no wrong way. A labyrinth is one way in and one way out. It just has twists and turns. It started in the olden times, but you can find them in a lot of like Catholic churches and meditation places. And so I don't really have business cards anymore, but I do have stickers, and they're finger labyrinths. Because I have these fun cards at home. I have a wooden finger labyrinth. I like labyrinths. It's supposed to be meditative, because now that you know you're not gonna get lost, you can just flow. And somebody earlier was speaking about balance, and balance is perfection. It's another word for perfection. If something is balanced, it is perfect. And so we don't want balance, we want flow. We want to be able to go in and out like the ocean. We want to weeble and wobble, but don't fall down. You know what I mean? That's how we want to function. And so I like a labyrinth because it's something that I can quiet my mind and just kind of follow. And so I'll have these for everyone. It's a great tool when you feel activated. Just take some breaths, follow through the path. And this is my QR code in the middle. If you want to reach out to me, you're welcome to, but what I want you to understand is in here, there's help. So getting to this place for yourself is calling one of your wound care people. Who can show up for me? Who can talk me down? Who can reality test me? Who are the people in my life? What prayer, what meditation, where's my journal? When we get here, then we get to what do I need? And so that is the practice of what I want you to stop. So is imposter syndrome real?
No.
So when you're like, it's imposter syndrome, what are you gonna do? You're like, that's not real. A part of me needs me. Let me listen. Let me get connected. All right? Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Mary Doble, who is a financial advisor and works actually with my financial advisor. When I was starting out as a young lawyer, I was like, all right, my employer does this with my 401k, so I guess I'll do that. And they told me to do this with my HSA, so I guess I'll do that. And I've got this financial, like monthly payment on my student loan, so I guess I'll do that. And I've got this mortgage payment that's at 5%, so I guess that's what I've got. And okay, I'm just gonna keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And really fell into this, like, I don't really know what I'm doing, so I'm gonna follow the default. What's amazing about Mary and her firm is that they are really good at walking through how to do things differently and actually like make your money work for you and the way that you want it to work. Not just falling into whatever the default is that your firm gave you or your student loan company gave you or whatever else. So I'm super excited to introduce Mary to all of y'all, to share with us how we can, live life by design, not by default. So Mary, take it away. Thank you.
Tom, you're gonna stand the slide.
Oh, sorry. I already forgot that I was my job.
So yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me here today. I am so excited to talk to you guys about one of my favorite topics, financial planning. And just a little bit about me. So I'm actually a CPA and I'm a managing partner and director of our tax area of the practice. But I'm also a PFS, which is the AICPA's version of the PFP. So I get to do both. And just a little bit about our firm at Small Extension. So we are unique. We are a family office, meaning that we offer a lot of different financial, bringing everything home together for the person. So we do tax, we do wealth management, planning, and we also do insurance. So our goal through a lot of pain in the industry is being able to provide our clients with a coordinated strategy across all boards of their financial lives. Because I've been in situations, Sam's been in situations where the advisor is giving conflicting advice to the CPA, the CPA is giving conflicting advice to the advisor. And so we're here to eliminate all that. So today our theme is going to be simple but powerful. First, I want you to protect and build a solid foundation before you start chasing after returns. Next, I want you to optimize your finances by eliminating inefficiencies and simplifying for ease of execution. And then lastly, I want you to grow your wealth intentionally, not just for more, but for meaning. First up, protect. So this is how we typically will look at client risk management framework. But just for today, this is a lot of information, but for today, we're only going to focus on really what's important for young professionals. So just covered a few of these topics today, but if you guys are interested in the slide deck, I'm more than happy to provide it just so you can kind of read through all the things that I'm not going to be talking about today. First up, disability. I wanted it on this because this is the most important. Your ability to produce income is your biggest asset. Somebody making, 25-year-old making $100,000 a year with a 3% increase every year can generate about 3.2 million over their entire lifetime. Does anyone have 3.2 million? No, get disability. This is so key, and it is one of the most underinsured areas because when most people think of disability, they think skydiving, freak accident, when in fact, 1 in 4 people end up on disability at some point in their life. And what that means is it's 2 or more years that you're not working. And so it's very, very important. And it's also really not related to injury most of the time. It's usually an illness. So think of gastrointestinal or musculoskeletal, some sort of long-term illness that is treating you out of work, not a freak accident. A couple of things that we typically suggest is to make sure that you're buying as much long-term disability that your company offers, which is usually going to be 60%, and it's usually going to be pre-tax, meaning that if you become disabled, you are going to pay tax on it. So it's really important that you are looking privately for additional gap coverage insurance and getting as much as you can to make up that difference. And also paying post-tax so that if you were to become disabled, you're not paying taxes on that income that you're receiving. Another key point is to make sure that you are purchasing additional purchase benefit rider. And what that does is it allows you to continue purchasing insurance as your income goes up without going through underwriting. Because there's something about turning 30 where your body just takes a turn. So you get back pain, you have a drink, and you got a headache the next day. So having that additional purchase benefit is huge. Okay, life insurance. So if you have dependents or anyone relying on you, this is an absolute. And if you're even, seriously dating or know that you want to have a family someday, we also highly suggest you go ahead and get it. We were typically suggesting for young professionals doing level term 30, meaning that you have, for 30 years, you have life insurance of about $1 million. And it's actually quite cheap. So as you can see in this little diagram below, 25 and 30-year-old, what the average cost a month would be for life insurance. And so we typically will say, as early as you can get it, because as you can see, the premiums go up the older you get.
And unfortunately, men, you are gonna have higher premiums because your morbidity rate, is higher than women. And unfortunately, I didn't cover this in the last slide, but women, your disability, premium is gonna be a little bit higher just because you're more prone to sickness and injury. But premiums are still very cheap for disability, considering what you're protecting. Health insurance, so we, as long as you're young, healthy, and don't have a lot of prescription medicine or any preventative, like just health issues already, we would suggest going with the high deductible plan. And that's because you can also pair it with the HSA, which is the best tax savings account out there. You are getting a tax deduction immediately, and it's all going tax-free as long as you use it for medical expenses, which is a very generous definition. We typically say, just don't use it, don't touch it, but if you did need to tap into it, you can use it for in vitro, you can use it for, acupuncture, like the list is so lengthy, and one thing is for sure is that you're going to have need a lot of medical care as you get older, so this is just sort of like this additional savings account, that you can have where you're actually getting the deduction, road tax free. And then, just to point out, so, people get a little freaked out about high deductible, so, every company is different, and their deductibility plans. But the minimum deduction in 2025 to be considered high deductible is $1,650 for individuals and $3,300 for family coverage. And if you're using the strategy of the high deductible plan, the HSA, you can build up your HSA, so it just covers your deductible, and there's not that. PNC, property and casualty coverage. So if you're thinking about purchasing a home, make sure that you are looking into insurance rates and coverage, because insurance companies got a lot pickier about where they're going to insure, especially in areas and even if they look at like someone has claimed a homeowner's claim in that house that you're buying. So it may not even be like a very like Florida, but if the homeowner has filed a claim, it could impact your rate as well. So making sure that you understand rates that are in the area that you're shopping for. And then we typically would suggest like 303 policy, but also look to see some areas will offer 827, and this coverage is significantly better. It covers a lot more, so something to consider if you're shopping around. And then 2, only file a claim if necessary, because your rates will go up. And you'll also be impacting the person who's buying the home after you. Auto, pretty straightforward. So, typically minimum you want to have is 100, 300, 100. And then umbrella, very, very important for your line of work. So this will, you guys are a target, just the area that you're in. So making sure that you have something, a big, policy to cover you if you were ever the subject of, a lawsuit or judgment. All right, is anyone here estate planning friend? Okay, if you guys do not have a will, power of attorney or healthcare plan attorney, please see her.
I've cards.
Yeah, just gave you a bunch of files and talk about sharing later. No, so like seriously, everyone should have an estate plan. Doesn't matter if you're single. It's planning. Not having your loved ones make certain decisions for you is key. And so last will and testament, this covers your probate assets. So anything that is not has a payable on death or transferable on death account, the will is governing how those assets are split up. And power of attorney, key that you have a financial power of attorney and healthcare power of attorney. Again, if you are ever incapacitated, you need to make sure you have a plan for who's able to help make those decisions for you. And lastly, living will, sometimes it gets bypassed a little bit. But I think this is honestly one of the most important, because I've just seen it play out so many times when someone has a terminal illness or a degenerative health condition such as Alzheimer's, and it's, they can't make decisions on their own, and the family is, wondering, hey, how much additional care should we give grandma to keep her going, even though we know she's going to pass soon. And it can be very divisive if you don't have this in place, because every family member has a different opinion. So making sure that you communicate your wishes,
And again, just to point out, this is not like a DNR, this is when you're at the end of your life. You specify how much care you want to receive to keep going. And then lastly, make sure that you are looking at your beneficiary designations on your retirement accounts, any life insurance policies, because whoever you put on there, that's who it's going to. It doesn't matter what the will says. And I've seen this play out, not so great. In fact, close to home with my in-laws' parents, they put a lot of stuff as transferable debt, payable account, payable on debt, which is the beneficiary designation. And what happened was they, ended up drawing into, one person's account, and so it ended up being, things were not split evenly, they weren't split how they should be, and it was kind of a mess. So making sure that your beneficiary designation aligns with how you want the will to say. Another tidbit, another example is I recently was going over to my mom and my grandma, and I found out that my mom was the only beneficiary of my grandma's IRA. And my mom said, no, I will take it out and I will distribute it to my brothers. Like I said, no, not how that works. I said, you're gonna pay an absurd amount of tax if that happens. And it just creates a whole mess. So really big on making sure that your beneficiary designations are how you want them. All right, optimize. So first and foremost, we want to make sure we have an emergency fund. This is key. It helps you in case that anything ever happens, such as short-term disability, or if you did have a long-term disability, there is a 90-day elimination period. So making sure that you have cash to cover something like that, or any major expense, especially for a home, because it's like as soon as you move in, things are breaking down. You don't know what happened, so making sure that you are well positioned. When you're starting out, I would say 3 to 6 months is appropriate, and then as you get older, I even like to move up to more to about 12 months, simply because it gives you opportunity. And the people who win with financial planning have the most flexibility, and cash gives you flexibility. Think about the pullback that we're experiencing right now. We have a lot of clients who are sitting in, some nice cash positions that are able to go in and take advantage of the current opportunities right now. And then, just making sure that you're, for anything that's over that 3 to 6 months, making sure that you're in a good cash alternative account that's generating good interest rates. Budgeting. So I did steal this from Dave Ramsey, but he said it best: if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. And I personally, I love budgeting. I think it's honestly been the key to my financial success at a young age. And so I just want to make sure I'm addressing some of the myths that people have about budgeting. So a lot of people think, I'm never going to be good at budgeting because I'm not a math person. False, there are tools and apps that do all math for you. You just have to categorize those transactions. Another one, a budget is too controlling. That's, again, false. A budget, you are putting yourself in the control seat. You're prioritizing how you want to spend your money, and you're holding yourself accountable. So most people think it's controlling, is actually you holding yourself accountable to what you originally said you wanted when you first made that budget. And lastly, I don't have time for budgeting. So nobody has time for anything. We make time for the things that are important to us. And so figuring out 5 minutes each night to categorize transactions, or maybe 15 minutes on the weekend to make sure that you're sticking to your budget. And also, too, one thing that's not talked about a lot with budgeting is like, it just brings awareness to you as a person. Like when you see what you're spending your money on, you start asking yourself questions like, why do I feel the need for this? Or, it helps you understand yourself better and maybe see some things that you might want to change with it. And so a great goal to have is trying to save 20% of your gross annual income, because the sooner that, the more you save, the sooner you have, and the sooner you'll reach financial freedom. And then also, another good one is, as you get raises, as you get bonuses, pre-decide how you want to spend that, right? So you don't have to be so strict on yourself that you're like, it's all going to debt, or it's all going here, but have a plan and stick to that plan, right? So be like a third, making sure that you're saving, making sure you're not debt, also making sure that you're
treating yourself, like you work hard and earn that bonus, so making sure that you're giving yourself grace there. All right, how many of you have read your benefit package? Love it, okay, great. Everyone else, please read it. Couple of things that you want to make sure you're doing just to optimize what your company is offering is make sure that you're taking advantage of the company match. So that's free money. So at least putting enough in to get the 100% match on whatever they're providing. Major line coverage, so I covered this earlier, but make sure you're buying up as much long-term disability insurance that your company is covering. It is very cheap and it is essential. Everything else, just be cognizant about, because we typically, like if they offer additional life insurance, we typically would suggest to take those amounts private so that you can take them anywhere with you. And then, again, just making sure that you're not over purchasing health insurance. And then, also another big one, tuition and student loan assistance. That's, student loan payments is one that more companies are rolling out. So make sure that you're looking into that and manage that if you're offering it. And then also, I'm sure you guys are not interested in school just yet again, but there's a lot of companies out there who will help with MBA programs, they have scholarships, or if you're trying to go for your master's, we'll help you there. All right, debt management. So the goal here is to try to get your liquidity ratio below 50%, as soon as you possibly can. So I am, and to me, when people ask me these questions, there's no, and they're trying to compare, like, well, this interest rate is like, I should invest because I'm making more here, and like, freedom equals like flexibility, and it equals, there's nothing that you can compare an interest rate to, when it comes to freedom. And I say that because when I started my career, I was very aggressive with paying off debt, student loans, all that, and I would have never, if I had been saddled with payments, I would have never been able to step into the space and become a business owner, because I would have been way too afraid. So financial freedom just it allows you to bet on yourself. So I'm like, when people try to argue with me about the math and all that, you can believe whatever you want, and then when you're the student loan debt, I would say be very careful with the public service loan forgiveness. Nothing wrong with it, but there's a lot of red tape. And as of 2023, only 11% of individuals who applied for it actually received it. So it's very tricky, to just be very careful with that. And then also consider, consolidating for simplicity, because complexity is the enemy of execution. So it feels very overwhelming when you see the long list, and just having one number helps. And then put in an audit bay, because a lot of lenders will offer a 5% discount to enroll in automatic. Okay, this is the fun question that I get from people all the time. I think that I could just, spit it out, but so balancing competing priorities. The biggest question I get is, especially from young professionals, is Mary, I want to pay off debt, I want to save for a house, I want to start a family, I want to contribute to that 529 as soon as you're born. How do I do all these things? And my answer to that is, there's very clear right priorities and there's very clear wrong priorities, and there is a lot of right answers in between. And that's really where financial planning is just so valuable, because it helps you figure out what is really important to you and what the trade-offs are, right? Because we're educated in the process, you understand the choices you're making, and your life is not going to look like everyone else's life just because you've been at school for a while. I work with a lot of doctors too who have been in school for a long time, gone through residency, and then they're finally at this place and they're like, they feel like they've lost years of their life. Their friends are way ahead of them. And so just like figuring out that balance and honestly being gracious and understanding that their life is going to look different, in a good way. And so just a couple of right and wrong priorities. So right priorities, right? So this way, always having long-term disability insurance, that is the right priority. Making sure that you have an emergency fund, right priorities, right? A couple of wrong priorities, right? Like needing insurance for, because you have too much insurance, or going into credit card debt to pay for an insurance product that you may not need right now. I recently helped my in-laws, they were not been very open about their finances, helped them. They opened up and I found out that they were paying for a permanent life insurance, being going into credit card in the process, so we had to back up and explain to them, they need to take care of themselves before they think of others, so just try to keep that in mind as you're thinking about all these things that, you need to do is like, the protection piece really should start first. Protect first and then optimize. All right, last row. Okay, so making sure that whatever, investment vehicles that you have, making sure you understand the tax implications of each of these vehicles. So anything that's marked with the X, the red X's is going to be the least, tax advantageous all the way down to the green, which is the most tax advantageous. The non-qualified accounts, I know they look really bad. I really like them. They're great accounts. It's just making sure that you understand what you're doing. So because they do have, if you have long-term capital gains or qualified dividends, you are getting preferential rate tax-free treatments from that. But in general, any income that you were earning through that account is going to be taxed immediately. So if you have something that's earning dividends, you're getting taxed on that, even if you don't pull it out. Making sure you understand that, as you're investing in these types of accounts or certificates of deposit. Next, we have the pre-tax. So this is the buy now, pay later option, and you're getting the deduction now and then paying tax on it in the future. For where you guys are at, definitely would consider the Roth option just because you're at probably the lowest income that you're probably gonna have in your careers. And I'll show you in the next slide, but tax rates are most likely going to be going up in the future, so taking advantage of that now is the Roth, and then the HSA, green on both sides. Best deduction out there, you're getting the deduction and not paying the tax later, as long as you take it out and use it for qualified medical expenses. And don't worry if you feel like you have too much in there because you took this advice, max it out every year for the rest of your life until you hit 60, 65, then you can also turn to a retirement account. So there's an option there too. Okay, so on the left side here, we have our debts, our US debt, and on the right, we have where the tax rates have been over that time period. So as you can see, the debt is consistently going up and our tax rates are dropping. So from looking at this, like, does anyone think that our rates are gonna stay the same or go down further? No, yeah. So again, really important as you're like thinking about investment vehicles, thinking about where taxes are, where they're gonna be. That's why I really like the Roth option for most people. All right. And so diversification. When you guys think about that, just out of curiosity, what do you guys think about if someone says diversify your assets? Like diversify possible.
Placing your assets in different accounts and different financial institutions.
Yeah, so something like small cap, mid cap, large cap, right? But we think about diversification a little bit differently. We think about it as, we like to assign each dollar a job for you. So it has a very specific purpose. And so we look to see what the risk orientation is. So is it, your safe and secure, guaranteed, critical capital, or home money, which is, you need to make at least 10% or it's not worth it. And then also looking at the length of time, when do you need this money? That is very, very key in making sure that you like where you place your money. And then there's a lot of, especially when we're thinking about dips and everything, people, try to buy the lowest. And so this is a really great visualization to kind of show the difference of, when the timing of when you put your money. So perfect timing, right, obviously is going to win. That's almost impossible to do. And then, we've got dollar cost averaging versus the year that simply does, pretty well as well. And then as you can see, cash is the biggest loser. So not putting your money in the market. And again, we're talking about long-term money here, not money that you need in a couple of years, but your long-term money, holding it in cash, you're going to lose every time. Yep, so you can't time markets. Does anyone know how much the S&P has lost investors? None. is people pulling out of the S&P that has lost some money. So making sure that, it's just not, again, going back to not timing the market to make sure you're in charge of your behavior with investment accounts. My dad he taught me everything about budgeting. He is such a frugal man and he is a terrible investor. He is that person, he's like, I can do this, I've got this. And then after 8 months of the market being down, he pulls out. And he has now positioned himself to a lot of guaranteed income, which I don't always suggest, but for him, that works because he's gonna keep pulling his money out of his pocket. All right, and then optimizing your retirement plan. So again, we kind of talked about this earlier, but making sure you have a good balance of pre and post-tax money, Roth versus traditional. And then make sure you're taking advantage of your employer match free money. And establishing an asset location that's, relative to your time horizon. So we really want to make sure that, when do I need this money? As young professionals, their retirement accounts way out in the future. So making sure that you have an appropriate investment allocation within your retirement account. Like probably you don't want bonds, right? So you're thinking equity is long term growth. And then also set it and forget it. So we, just don't focus on day trading. It's just most people don't do well with it. It's also kind of emotional, and then they might it's kind of like gambling. Like you kind of get a high one day and then you kind of lose the next day, and it's just this perpetual feeling. And the most important thing, honestly, with growing your money is behavioral management. How you interact with your money is so important. And so a few key points that we like to coach our clients on is automating. So just putting a monthly draft of savings, whether that's your emergency fund, your retirement account, just setting it, forgetting it. And then simplify. We really try to help our clients simplify their finances as much as possible, because otherwise they're not going to take the first step forward. And then emotions and accountability. So again, selling in the down market, that's how you save money. And also just, and then blind spot awareness, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. And so working with professionals, somebody who has seen the good, the bad, the ugly, working with you is paramount. And, I think of a estate plan attorney in particular, because they're I get that there's like LegalZoom and other things, but they have seen some really ugly situations. And so I really encouraged my mom, like my grandma, after my grandpa passed, to work with an estate plan attorney, because they were the type that was like, we'll do it online, And I was like, no, like you guys need to understand like what's going to happen, how it's going to impact you, and what's the worst that you get. So you can effectively make your decisions and be comfortable with them. And then lastly, so just interesting studies on working with advisors. So my husband works at Vanguard, so I thought this was pretty funny. He's not an advisor, he's on the technology side. But Vanguard doesn't have advisors. They do for ultra high net worth individuals, but their studies show that approximately 3% annually in enhanced returns just through working with advisors who can help you with strategy. And then a couple other strategies as well that just highlighted the benefits of what a financial advisor can do for you and the benefits there. So I think I made pretty good time, because I wanted to make sure I left something available for questions. So anybody have any cards? I do, yes.
Yeah, awesome. So this is the first generation summit, right? And so many young lawyers might be making more money than any other person in their family. What's your advice for young lawyers who's making their own financial plan? I know we discussed that, but also in comparison to taking on additional responsibilities like family.
Yeah, no.
Their other, their close friends.
Totally understand. I have a good friend who's also a dentist, and she is from Russia, and she is in that situation where her family is, now that she is a dentist and making X amount of money,
expect a certain amount of support to that. And so it is definitely a delicate balancing act, but I would say, you know, loving boundaries, just being upfront, because I don't know your specific situation, right? But if you have, I know she has student loans that she's, you know, it doesn't feel, yes, it seems like a lot of money, but hey, I'm also like a couple of years behind on investments and also these other things. And so just helping, people understand your priorities, but, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with, you know, blessing your family or sharing, you know, income to the extent that you feel comfortable. But understanding, I think you need to understand like what you're trading off on. If you're, you know, supporting them in that way.
So earlier you talked about the savings accounts, maybe like 3 to 6 months for those, so when you have your clients, do you tell them this? Do you like differentiate between how much money they can keep in cash at home or how much they keep in the account? So I know, like some of my family members, they're just like, we just set physical cash aside and all this stuff, so I wonder if you like differentiate that with your clients.
You need cash outside of a bank account?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, so I would probably suggest keeping it all in some sort of institution and not like 3 months of cash outside of the, bank, like you're talking like a honey bag or something at home.
Yeah, they're just like, keep it in a savings account, but it also keeps like certain amount of money outside.
I think that's more of your just
Yeah.
institution, so, your money is much safer in an account than that, so I would encourage that. Any tax questions? That's my specialty.
I have tax questions and I'll really get your business card, but, I think my husband and I are at the place where we need to do some life planning, but then also like tax considerations. You know, we don't have dependents, so that's a lot of taxes. And so we're trying to think of creative ways to, you know, mitigate that. Have you heard of people like, making their grandparents or parents dependent if they're like elderly?
If you support them, yeah, as long as it's within the confines of like what its supported is. It is not as big as a deduction, I think, as some people think, it's 500, you know. But yeah, if you, I work with a client who supports both of his parents, or the percent, so yeah, that's an option. Do either of you own a business?
We don't.
Everyone should think about how they're going to form their own business, because those are the winners of the tax. People who have their own business, there is a plethora of deductions that are legal and available to you when you own your own business, so. Something that I wish I had done a little bit better when I was starting out is like thinking about things that I liked about my industry and about my firm and things I wanted to change. So I could be a little bit more prepared than what I was when I stepped out on my own, because again, I love like all the advice that I've been given, but just don't know where your life is gonna take you. So I would highly suggest like considering that route, even if you're like, I'm probably the last person to be a business owner, because I was so comfortable as an employee and having somebody else take care of the stressful administrative things, but that would be like my biggest advice to you is like, start planning now, how am I doing on my own?
Do you work with farmers? Farmers or folks in agriculture that have like farmland?
We do not, but I know, if you're interested, I could try to, find someone who, because there's people who specialize in certain industries. And that would be one that you would probably want to find someone who works with a lot of farmers.
Okay, cause my manager, he's a farmer now and a beekeeper on the side, but I guess he's over there for tax reasons. An officer too. So, he has cows and he says in Florida, you can get a certain tax deduction for a certain number of cows that you have. So my family has a family farm, and so might need to put some check in
If you like doing it, right, like
Right,
never
that's my
do
work.
something, never let the tax go like a dog, because that will make you miserable every time.
That's right. Yeah, I need to get out there. I'm from Castle County. I need to get out there and see what it's like, because I'm not outside.
Yeah. Yeah, spend some nature first before you pull that trigger. Yep. anyone who does, I do have a sign-up sheet for anyone who wants to stay connected or have additional questions, and I also have business cards. But I was planning on sending out the slide deck to you, for anyone, yeah. We have the time.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
We just had this wonderful discussion about financial planning and money, so we're gonna move to our next panel, which is kind of focusing on how to maximize the money that you're currently making, that way you'll be able to actually invest it properly. So this panel is a salary and rate negotiation panel. I would like to call up our three esteemed panelists, Sam, Shanae, and Sheila, to join me. So while they're coming up, I'm gonna introduce myself. I'm Jeremy Locklear. I'm an employment attorney with Parker Coe Adams and Bernstein in Raleigh, North Carolina. I primarily focus on employment litigation, but also do client counseling and management as well. I'm currently on my 5th position. It might be my last, who knows? We'll see how it goes. Of those 5, I've been able to negotiate 3 out of the 5 in terms of salary or compensation packages. One of those is a state government job, so not really a potential opportunity to negotiate. And the other one, unfortunately, I took advice of someone who said, don't negotiate because they worked there before. Otherwise, it would have been 4 out of 5. So my panelists introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. I am Samantha Gordon. I'm an estate planning attorney. Right now, I'm in a transition from one firm to another. I have negotiated every single salary that I've been offered since I've been an attorney. I've had 4, coming up 5 different positions. And I'm really excited to talk about this today.
Hey, everybody, I'm Sheila Spence. I'm chair-elect of the YOD. I'm working as senior legal counsel at JUMP, the subsidiary of SAS, down in Cary, North Carolina. And I'm in my 3rd legal position that I've negotiated 2 out of 3. Hey, everybody, I'm Shanae. I am not a practicing attorney, but I did go to school with Jeremy and Sheila. I actually transitioned my career into recruiting, where although I'm not advocating for clients, advocating for candidates. And so I teach people how to negotiate their salary. I've helped people negotiate higher upward of $141,000 increase from what he was making to what he's offered in total compensation.
So a few different experiences here. Before we jump into my questions, are there any burning questions for you all? Because I'd like to give you all the opportunity. Because I have enough to keep us going throughout the entire panel. Any burning questions on the front end? Hearing none, I will move into our first one. So panelists, why is it important for young attorneys, especially first generation, to learn how to negotiate their salary and compensation at the early stages of their career? And we can live in.
Okay. You guys, question?
Yeah, why is it important for young attorneys, especially first gen, to learn how to negotiate their salaries at the beginning of their career?
Yeah, so, sitting in the recruiter seat as the person who makes the offer, I think one of the things that I learned as a recruiter is it's really easy to undercut candidates when you don't know your worth. And so I think the important thing about it is when I come across candidates who I may offer $70,000 a year to a candidate that I offer $150,000 to $200,000 a year, you can tell the difference in the experience and the level of comfort in the work. And also you can tell the difference from the seat that I sit in HR, you can tell the difference in background, in demographics, in race, in gender. You can tell the difference in the comfort in that from that aspect too. Some of my Caucasian candidates, they're not as fearful from a male perspective to ask for what they want. But then I have my candidates who are people of color, specifically women, who are interested in an $80,000 salary and think that they made it. And so I teach people how to understand who they are, what they're worth, what they want to make. And then, so my fun phrase is know who you are, know your worth, and then add taxes plus shipping. Because the idea is, some of the candidates that I make offers to, they've never seen $100,000 a year, never imagined $100,000 a year, while to other people, $100,000 a year is like $30,000 in a salary. And so I think it's important for first generation students to understand that if you come from a family who has not ever made close to $70,000 a year, let alone 80, 90, and 100, then you have to understand what is considered a good amount of money, what's considered good living when it comes to the type of life you want to have. And then kind of just what you want to share with your loved ones and being able to raise a family and not live paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, and I'll just add, when you don't negotiate your salary early on, your first job or earlier experiences, it's always harder to play catch up later, right? If you started at 50,000 and now you want a $200,000 job, that first company that you're at, they're never gonna pay you that amount. Now you're gonna have to leave. Now you're gonna have to do a lot of research, what is the industry showing, how much like maybe, and then, ask your worth then. So as much research as you can do on the front end on how much you're supposed to make in your specific industry so that you can go in, with an ask that makes sense for your level of experience. I think that's easier to start out with versus just accepting whatever, you're being offered, and then trying to play catch up later on throughout the years.
I would also say it's practice. And so, I was thinking while we were doing meditation, channeling inner child, something that I always tried to practice when I was a kid was the, monkey bars and really trying to get across those. And it took practice to do that. So if you start off, maybe your first position, negotiating your salary in some form, maybe negotiating benefits, that's where you can start and then you can practice as you go to different positions. It's very easy to see a salary that you're being offered as an attorney, especially if you apply to a lot of jobs. And you're like, okay, this is what they're offering me. I don't want to make them not want to hire me because I've said that this isn't enough and I want this. Like you are inherently scared that maybe they're going to take that offer back because you're not going to accept just right off the bat what they're offering you. More often than not, that employer is going to have respect for you for knowing your worth, even if you are a new attorney. And so, like I said, I've always negotiated my salary, even if it was my first job, it was, very low. I only got like a couple $1,000s more, but that's a couple $1,000s more that I otherwise would have not gotten if I didn't trust myself. And at the end of the day, my boss had respect for me because I knew that that's what I wanted. And so, don't be afraid, I would say, and practice. If you start from the beginning, it will give you that practice and that ability to do it when you get to those higher ranges as well.
Sheila, you mentioned research, so how can young attorneys research what a fair salary is for their position? Depending on geographic preference, practice preference, private practice versus corporate, things like that. Any tips and tricks there?
Sure, yeah. From an in-house perspective, I do a basic Google search. I'm on Indeed and Glassdoor and LinkedIn. Now even shows like the salary ranges that each job position has, and then I'll look at that. I'll look at the years of experience. Okay, this is 6 to 8. This is 8 to 10. I always want to look at one category higher than what I'm at, right? So that's how I research, what the going rate is for my particular position. I also look at the type of industry, that I'm working in. I'm in tech, so I wouldn't look at, banking or another industry. I try to make it as close as possible, comparing apples to apples, when doing that research. And then the most unconventional thing that I do is ask others. I ask my colleagues that I trust, hey, how much do you make? Are we making the same? If we're working in the same industry, and if they feel comfortable, they'll tell me. So those are some ways that I've figured it out.
To go off of that, like I said, recently I'm transitioning from one job to another. And I had a previous colleague that I worked at a different law firm, who now works at this firm. And so I called her and I said, hey, I was like, so I'm looking to apply to where you're working at. What do you make? Because I needed to be somewhat close to what I was making from the job I just left. And so I reached out to her. In addition to that, what I'll do is I will look at the ranges and I'll kind of expect what my offer is going to be, but what my actual ceiling is and like what I want. And I think it's really important when you're in an interview, if they ask you what your range is, you start up high. That, because if you start off low because you're scared that's gonna scare them off, then that's where you're stuck. So if you start off high, they can come back with something lower. And so it's important to know what you expect from that position when you're going into that interview as well. That's a question that I've been asked in most of my interviews, is what is my range or what do I expect?
And it's also important to understand where your money goes. So the difference between a law firm and Sheila's an in-house, I'll say in-house counsel is that in-house counsel, the package may be a little bit different than a law firm. And so it's understanding the type of industry that you're in as it relates to the legal part of the industry. And then being able to understand if it's total comp, if it's base salary, you get a sign on, are you being offered stock? If they can't move on stock, can you negotiate a little bit more non-cash benefits? And it's being able to do that to understand where all your money is going.
Yeah, and coming from the private practice sector, I'm a somewhat large firm and our salaries are kind of set in tiers. So there's not really a whole lot of room to negotiate, but if you can find someone in those firms and give you insight as to what the tiers might look like for fine comparative firms, like me and Colin's firm are somewhat similar, so I can ask Colin, what attorneys did your firm make? Just that way you know kind of what you're going into. Sinead, you kind of touched on this next question. So what other elements beyond the strict salary should we consider and negotiate as part of the compensation package?
Yeah, so depending on the recruiter that you have, I will say, let me be very clear, not all of us ghost jump. Okay, we are not all ghosting recruiters. I'm one of those people who are not ghosting recruiters. I will tell you that some of us, when we're asking you what your salary expectation is, sometimes the tactic for the candidate is what's the range if the range is not available on the job description. Some states have enacted salary transparency laws, which is why you'll see some of the jobs, the ranges posted. Colorado, New York, California, Maryland are four off the top of my head that I know they have to have those ranges. If you're working in like big tech or any company where the person can be remote in any of those states where the law is enacted, then even if the headquarters is in another state where it's not, it still has to be on the job description per compliance. That said, when you're talking about negotiating your salary and you're trying to understand where your money is going, if we're asking you what your salary expectation is, sometimes the tactic is, can you tell us the pay rate of the position that or the budget of the position that's being offered? You'll notice that some of the more senior and experienced professionals will say, that's not something I'm comfortable with sharing at the moment. I would like to know a little bit more about the job duties and responsibilities, talk to the interviewing team before I actually give my salary expectation. And that is just something we have to respect. So it's not always a thing where you'll have to give your salary expectation. Some applications will make you, but then there are times where you could say, the application made me give my salary expectation, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about what was available based on what's available in the budget. I would also implore you all to understand, like I said, what the total comp structure actually is. Some people have bonuses, some people have, whether it's end of year bonuses or just sign-on bonuses, they may have promotional tracks or merit increases and stuff like that. And there's a difference between, in some companies, a merit increase versus a performance-based bonus, right? And so being able to understand if you can negotiate a performance-based percentage or you can negotiate a merit percentage, so what we do is we get creative. So we can't move on a base salary, we may be able to move on a stock or a sign-on and stuff like that. And that comes from the candidate understanding how the money works and where it goes, and to understand what's on it.
Yeah, and I'll just add some non-money things you can negotiate as well, especially as a first gen and as a new lawyer. I think I was very much afraid to ask for more money, and that's why I said I've only negotiated 2 out of my 3 jobs. Because my first job, I was like, yes, let's just work, you know. But what I wish I would have known, right, that you can ask for things outside of base salary. So one thing I would have
wish I asked about was, just pushing back my start date. Maybe I could have pushed it back 1 week and had a break from school to working, or just, from one job to another job. You can ask. They can say no, but you can try, right? So pushing back the start date, also, asking for remote work, right? A lot of people like the flexibility of working from home. I've been working from home for 5 years, so yes, I would like to have some aspect of that moving forward, even if it's in a hybrid situation, maybe you can say, oh, I'll come in 2 days instead of 3. I think there's some flexibility to do that as well. So just get really, vacation time. Maybe you can ask for a couple more days, instead of the 15 or 10 that they may give you. So think of all the things that come with your compensation packet as well. It's just the money. Yeah, question?
Yeah, I have a question, just out of curiosity, are there any like perks that y'all have seen that people get that's like, oh wow, I didn't know that they did it, or just in your own experience? Are there any like extra benefits that you got, or have you know that people get that like, oh, I didn't know they negotiate that, or I didn't think of that?
Yeah, so I would say this wasn't more of a negotiation, it was just something that came with being an employee salary in big tech. And one of the things that we got was, that didn't know companies did was, they had like preferred airlines that where you can get discounts on travel, discounts in hotels, rental cars. But then, like, if we went to a specific airport and we showed our badge, we can bypass any other line and go straight to this company's employees line and be checked in and then go to TSA, no matter how long the other lines were. And anyone who were with us could also take advantage of their benefit. And then one of the other benefits was, I didn't know that companies gave, like wellness stipends. And so they'll pay for but it's not just gym membership. So it's like, if you buy a Peloton, a treadmill, they'll reimburse you. If you, something to take care of yourself. If you massages, get your hair done, your nails done, your eyebrows done. Yeah. And being able to submit those receipts and have a certain budget that is allotted to everybody, per calendar year.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I want to jump on this. I just figured out after the fact that my company had that too. So it is a really nice perk. You can ask others how they're utilizing the money to make sure that you're appropriate as well. And I've heard lots of folks say, that you pay for their house cleaners and dry cleaning for their clothes and
Sneakers.
shoes,
What?
running shoes, take out because they're working from home.
I'm leaving.
I work out.
I'm going immediately.
I work for Microsoft.
Oh, like,
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
my new position I thought was really cool. I'm a dog mom. I have 3 4-legged children. I don't plan on having actual human children, I guess. And they offer pet insurance, which I thought was really cool because I pay a ton of money in pet insurance for 3 dogs. I have a senior dog, which I don't like to say, but it's true. And so I thought that was a really cool perk to get pet insurance.
Yeah. Speaking of that, that reminds me of one more thing. So a lot of places, or some places may have like a stipend, for daycare and childcare, but also companies may provide stipends for elder care. So if you're watching your parents or grandparents as well, so that's
I love how intrigued you look. You look so intrigued.
Cause my grandparents were, so, I mean, that would be nice, like in the real world. Right?
Yeah, they have categories where you can select if you use a certain part of your stipend to take somebody to the doctor, and you'll add the assets into that receipt and they'll reimburse you on a paycheck.
Okay, so we talked about all these perks. So how would you advise preparing for a negotiation when you're coming from a point of no leverage, i.e. coming right out of law school, things like that?
I think as a person who makes the offer, I always tell people, if you're going to negotiate, it has to make sense. So I think I never discourage anyone from negotiating, but I've seen people come right out of school and be like, yeah, I want $150,000. And I'm like, where? Wait, proof of rejection.
And then I'll also challenge people and I'll say, tell me on what on your resume tells me you deserve $150,000. And it's the people who, if they get offended by that, that's how I know they don't deserve to get. Because in my mind, if you get offended by the very early stages of that, for the people who working with, God bless you. So I would say that for people who do not have leverage, going back to the research tools that Sheila was talking about is going to be really important. And to understand what people in the market in your area is making for that particular position if you don't have the industry experience that they're looking for.
I'm really struggling to find a good answer. But here's what I'll say. Use your experience, even if you have zero experience right out of law school. What you can do is get into industries where, it's where there's emerging laws, right? So like privacy and AI, there's not a lot of lawyers that have 50 years of AI experience, right? Because this is a new and upcoming thing. You can get certifications in these areas and still show yourself as an expert, as a subject matter expert in areas that are less well known. And I think if you get really specific and niche, then you can position yourself to ask for more money, even if you haven't actually practiced in those areas just yet. So that would be my recommendation. And secondly, if you're not able to get those certs, maybe just start working anyways, right? Work wherever you can get a job and get as much experience as you can. Raise your hand a lot, say yes, and put all those tools in your toolbox to bring it to the next job that you really want to work at. You can leverage that as a negotiating tool later on, even if you don't feel comfortable negotiating right now at your first gig.
I like that. Also, if you're getting your first job offer as a brand new attorney, I think it's also a way that you can negotiate that salary is if you did internships or if you did workshops while you're in law school. And you can say, well, I did this internship and I learned about this, and that's really gonna help me be a great attorney at your firm in this position. And so I think with that knowledge that I have, this is what I'm worth, or this is what I, expect as a salary. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's showing that you have some experience, although not actual lawyer experience as a law student working at a firm, if you've done internships and workshops and things like that. So you can pull from that from your resume as well.
Okay, we have 2 more minutes. I do want to get this one question out. How can first generation attorneys overcome the discomfort or fear of seeming ungrateful, greedy, or pushy when negotiating a salary?
I think it's your perspective. I mean, I think that's just a perspective. Well, I don't think that's necessarily true. Like, I'm not being greedy because I want more money, because I think that's what I'm worth based on my ability to do the job. I think it's definitely hard as a first generation attorney. I'm a first generation attorney. I was the first person in my family to go to college. And so I think it's hard to see the value in yourself when maybe you didn't grow up with individuals that have higher education, and to trust that you have that value that you can offer to that firm. And so as a first generation attorney, I think it's just important as a young attorney to just figure out what your value is and know that it's not you being greedy. It's you saying like, hey, like I went through this 3 years of grueling work to get to where I'm now. And I just know that this is my value and I'm not, and it's also your presentation. Like if you present it in a very thoughtful way, it can come off as a way of showing your value rather than you being greedy. Just as an example, my previous position, I negotiated my salary in a bathroom stall. I was at a workout, I got the offer letter, I didn't like the, offer that I received because I thought it was gonna be different. And so I immediately called my boss and I said, hey, like, this isn't gonna work for me, this is what I'm expecting, like, can we do it or not? And Loud Luxury, it was in Charlotte, Loud Luxury was like playing, if you guys know this. Was playing while we were doing like kickboxing classes and I was negotiating my salary in a bathroom stall. Like I just did it. And it was also because I had it in my head what I wanted and I was being thoughtful about it because I had already thought about it. And so I think approaching it with thoughtfulness and being intentional can really help with the presentation of it not feeling like you're being greedy or you're being ungrateful.
I'll say, I think I want to take a step back. From my seat, where I see it is, you can have all of the experience on your resume, you can have all of it on paper, But if you do not know how to interview and sell yourself, the hiring team is not going to believe that based on the salary that you want, that you're going to be able to perform at the level that they need you to perform if you're not convincing them in the interview. But if they still want to take a chance on you hiring you anyway, then that's where the negotiation can be a little bit difficult, and I've seen that a lot. So I coach people on how to interview and how to prepare and get ready for the scenario-based and behavioral-based questions that they're gonna get into. I think when it comes to sounding ungrateful, I think it's the strategy of pushing the needle until you know you can't push it anymore.
Yeah.
So there comes a point where the recruiting and hiring team has done every single thing that you asked as a candidate, you've asked them to do in pushing the needle. And then there are some candidates that I've come across that are just not grateful. Like genuinely are just, no matter what we've done, no matter how much we push the needle, it's still not enough. And I've had to take the position of, maybe this position isn't for you. And it's not that I'm rescinding the offer. It's maybe this position just isn't for you because we've done everything at this point that we can, and you still want more, and I can't give you that. And so that's when the candidate will change their mind and go, oh, wait, no. It's almost like they're testing us to see what we're going to get, which in turn can piss off the hiring leaders and can feel like they have, like, how is this person going to be on the job now that we've seen a different side of them? So I think it's discernment, and I think it's going to be knowing how to interview, and if you know how to interview and you did it well, now the salary that you want has to match how well you did in your interview, and then having that feeling of pushing the needle a little further until you know you can't push it.
And I'll end, oh, what?
I'll add one little thing about the offer. You have to be bold, but also you have to think about worst case scenario. I have had an offer rescinded because they said this is too much. But that was okay, because if we're not aligned, then we're not aligned. We're not gonna be aligned here, we're not gonna be aligned when I work. So when you're bold, you have to know that it's a possibility. But there will be others, you'll find the right fit that's for you. So don't get discouraged if you hear one no or one offer rescinded. It doesn't mean that you were too greedy, it just means that you and that company didn't align. So you have to find a place where you're welcome, where where both parties feel like you're getting the most out of what you really need.
And I would know this, if you can't advocate for yourself at the very beginning of the job, how can you be expected to advocate for your clients as you're doing the job?
I've had a lot of rejection letters because my salary expectation was too high, a lot. And to be quite honest, I didn't mind being rejected because of that. Because I know work, I'm not accepting $60,000 a year when my work is at 180.
Yes, ma'am.
Plus. Taxes and shipping.
Well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.